The mind is the battlefield on which every victory and every defeat is decided long before any action is taken in the external world. To allow your thoughts to be consumed by worry is to surrender this battlefield before the battle has even begun. Worry is the invisible chain, the quiet oppressor that convinces you that the world is larger than your capacity, that the dangers you perceive are insurmountable. Every moment spent doubting, fearing, or overanalyzing is a moment in which your enemies, be they circumstances, competitors, or rivals, gain ground while you remain immobilized. True power begins not with external conquest, but with mastery of one's own mind. Those who allow worry to dominate are already defeated, even if they still move their bodies or utter commands. They react rather than act. They are driven by the tides of fear and uncertainty, rather than shaping the tides to their own purpose. A mind under siege by worry is like a fortress with its gates wide open. The walls may be high, the soldiers may be numerous, but every internal conflict creates vulnerability that can be exploited. It is in the silence of thought, in the unobserved moments when doubt creeps in, that the seeds of failure are planted. To control the mind is to recognize that these seeds are not invincible, that they are not inevitable. They are merely thoughts, and thoughts are subordinate to will. Control over your mind is not passive. It is deliberate, calculated, and unrelenting. It requires the ruthless observation of your own inner workings. Every worry, every flicker of hesitation must be confronted and evaluated for its usefulness. Is this worry a warning, a signal of genuine risk? Or is it a phantom, a distraction designed by your own fear to weaken your resolve? The wise understand that most worries are indeed self-imposed, illusions that grow larger the more attention they are given. By dissecting each anxious thought, by analyzing the motive and truth behind it, one disarms it. The mind becomes not a captive to circumstance, but a tool sharpened by clarity and foresight. Consider the great tacticians, the rulers, the conquerors throughout history. They are not men and women who were free of worry. Far from it. They felt doubt, apprehension, and fear. What distinguished them was not the absence of worry, but their refusal to surrender to it. They treated worry as a signal, a messenger that demanded attention, strategy, and control. When worry emerged, they did not scatter or flinch. They analyzed, recalibrated, and redirected its energy toward calculated action. Control over the mind means understanding this principle. Worry is not weakness unless it is allowed to dictate your choices. It becomes a weapon when harnessed with precision. To master your mind is to recognize the difference between thought and action, between contemplation and paralysis. Many fall into the trap of endless rumination, believing that thinking alone will prevent disaster. Yet the mind, when ungoverned, can create catastrophes where none exist. The individual who rules their own mind transforms worry into foresight, anxiety into strategy, and fear into resolve. Each moment of doubt is an opportunity to reinforce mental discipline, to refine focus, and to sharpen judgment. Mental control is the prelude to victory, the invisible force that precedes all external success. In essence, control over the mind is the ultimate leverage in life's contests. It is the foundation upon which all power is built. It ensures that you are not swayed by every whisper of doubt, every flicker of fear, or every unexpected turn of events. By dominating your own thoughts, by refusing to be ruled by worry, you establish the capacity to act decisively, to command influence, and to shape outcomes rather than react to them. The mind, once mastered, becomes an unassailable fortress, the true seat of power from which all victories are launched. Action is the currency of power. Anxiety, in contrast, is a tax levied on the mind, a weight that drains potential and dilutes strength. Those who remain trapped in hesitation allow fear to dictate their movements, allowing the world to act upon them while they sit paralyzed. The wise understand that waiting for certainty is a luxury reserved for the weak, and that decisive action, even in the midst of uncertainty, separates the victors from the vanquished. Every moment spent trembling over possibilities is a moment in which influence is surrendered to those willing to act, who seize opportunity before it slips beyond reach. Anxiety is the enemy of momentum, and without momentum, no strategy, no plan, no vision can manifest. The first step toward embracing action over anxiety is the recognition that perfection is an illusion. The mind, in its ceaseless striving for flawless outcomes, often manufactures a prison of hesitation. The anxious individual imagines every conceivable failure, rehearses each disastrous scenario, and convinces themselves that only flawless calculation can prevent defeat. Yet the world is neither predictable nor accommodating to hesitation. Fortune favors decisiveness, and those who act with intent, even imperfectly, shape reality in their favor. The one who hesitates, no matter how skilled, leaves the door open for rivals, for circumstances, and for fate itself to dictate terms. Anxiety is most potent when it masquerades as prudence. The subtle voice that urges caution, that whispers of consequences and what-ifs, appears rational and sensible, yet it is often a cunning enemy, dressed in the guise of reason. To act in the presence of anxiety is to confront this internal saboteur. It is to acknowledge the potential for failure, to weigh the risks with clarity, and then to move forward regardless. Decisive action transforms the energy of anxiety into a tool rather than a chain. The very fear that paralyzes others can be harnessed as a propellant, driving rapid and strategic motion. Those who master this transformation turn anxiety into preparation, hesitation into opportunity, and doubt into calculated courage. History is rife with examples of those who achieved greatness not through endless contemplation, but through bold, timely action. Leaders, generals, and innovators have often succeeded precisely because they acted when others were immobilized by fear. In every instance, the difference was not superior resources or insight alone, but the ability to move decisively while the anxious lingered in indecision. Action creates reality, it imposes will upon circumstance. To act is to seize control, to shape events before they shape you. To remain ensnared by anxiety is to cede control, to wait passively while the currents of the world sweep past. Action over anxiety demands a disciplined mind, for impulsiveness without calculation is reckless, and hesitation without reason is fatal. The individual who acts decisively is not blind to danger. They see it clearly, measure its implications, and then choose movement over stagnation. Every choice to act reinforces momentum, builds confidence, and asserts dominance over both circumstance and self. Anxiety may whisper, but the command to act must be louder, more deliberate, and unwavering. The true master understands that inaction, though seemingly safe, carries its own deadly consequences: opportunity lost, influence diminished, and the erosion of personal authority. Those who embrace action over anxiety cultivate a relentless rhythm of execution. Each decision, each maneuver, becomes a testament to control and resolve. By consistently prioritizing movement over hesitation, they transform fear into a strategic advantage, using anxiety as a signal rather than a shackle. They act not out of recklessness, but out of calculated courage, understanding that the mastery of circumstance begins with the mastery of timing and initiative. In this way, action is both a weapon and a shield, a declaration that despite uncertainty, power is claimed through motion rather than immobilized by doubt. Perception is not merely a reflection of reality. It is the lens through which influence is built, authority is asserted, and power is maintained. The world responds not to truth alone, but to the image projected by those who understand its weight. One's actions, intentions, and even silences are measured not only by their substance, but by the interpretation they provoke in the minds of others. To underestimate the power of perception is to surrender control over influence. Those who fail to shape how they are seen are condemned to react to the narratives imposed upon them, leaving their authority and decisions perpetually subject to the whims of others. The manipulation and mastery of perception begins with awareness. One must observe how every word, gesture, and choice is interpreted, and then decide whether it serves the goal of power or undermines it. It is not enough to act rightly. One must also appear unassailable. Strength can be masked by humility, fear can be concealed beneath calm, and strategy can be veiled behind spontaneity. The world seldom rewards transparency without discernment. Instead, influence is cultivated by those who understand that appearances, carefully constructed and consistently maintained, shape behavior, allegiance, and opportunity. To control perception is to dictate the terms by which others engage with reality. Perception extends beyond the self. It shapes the environment and compels others to act in ways advantageous to the one who commands it. When a leader is seen as resolute, decisive, and confident, their followers act with greater unity, rivals hesitate, and circumstances bend subtly to accommodate their vision. Conversely, when doubt, hesitation, or uncertainty is visible, even the smallest opposition gains leverage. Power, therefore, is not solely in the action itself, but in the impression it leaves. Perception can amplify strength, mask weakness, and manipulate outcomes in ways that force acknowledgement and obedience without confrontation. Those who neglect this truth risk being overpowered not by force alone, but by the subtle erosion of influence. The mastery of perception requires discipline and intentionality. One must not allow internal conflict, fear, or doubt to betray the exterior presented to the world. Every interaction, from the most public declaration to the quietest negotiation, contributes to the tapestry of perception. The wise understand that perception, once established, becomes a lens through which all subsequent actions are interpreted. A carefully managed appearance of competence can magnify actual ability, just as a cultivated reputation for ruthlessness can deter challenges before they are attempted. Perception is therefore a strategic weapon, a means of asserting authority and controlling outcomes with precision and subtlety. Moreover, perception is inseparable from timing and narrative. The perception of strength, intelligence, or inevitability must be reinforced consistently, yet adjusted to suit circumstances. Too rigid a presentation invites scrutiny and rebellion. Too erratic an image breeds doubt and disarray. The art lies in balancing visibility and mystery, openness and concealment, certainty and adaptability. Those who master this balance wield a form of power that is nearly impervious. Rivals are unsure when to strike, allies are compelled to follow, and even fate itself seems to bend in recognition of the impression made. Perception is intimately tied to credibility, influence, and the ability to shape outcomes without overt force. It is the silent architecture behind every successful strategy, the invisible current that propels victories, and the shield that conceals vulnerability. Those who understand that power is as much about how one is seen as how one acts gain leverage over both people and events. They learn to orchestrate reality not only through action, but through the careful management of impressions, controlling the thoughts and expectations of others to achieve their goals. In this way, perception becomes the most potent form of currency in the pursuit of dominance. Fear is a force as ancient and powerful as life itself, a signal embedded deep within the mind, designed to alert, to protect, and to demand attention. Yet fear, in its raw and unrefined state, is often paralyzing, sapping courage and diluting potential. The difference between those who falter and those who prevail lies not in the absence of fear, but in the mastery of it. Fear, when recognized, analyzed, and harnessed, becomes the most potent source of energy, a clarion call that sharpens instincts, refines strategy, and drives action with relentless precision. To deny fear is to live in ignorance. To harness it is to command strength beyond ordinary measure. The first step in transforming fear into fuel is acknowledgement. Those who attempt to ignore or suppress fear find it festering beneath the surface, poisoning judgment and slowing action. True mastery begins with confronting fear head-on, dissecting its origin, and understanding its message. Fear is never random. It emerges as a response to real or perceived threats, offering insight into vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and areas demanding preparation. By recognizing fear as information rather than weakness, the individual converts apprehension into strategic advantage, turning instinctive hesitation into informed, calculated movement. Fear's power lies in its universality. Every human, no matter their station, experiences it. This universality makes it a tool not only for self-mastery but for influencing others. Observing fear in opponents, understanding what threatens them, and anticipating their reactions allows one to manipulate circumstances, exploit hesitation, and create opportunities invisible to those blinded by dread. In this way, fear is both a personal accelerator and a weapon of influence. By mastering one's own fear and perceiving it in others, the individual shapes outcomes, bending both internal and external forces to their will. To use fear as fuel requires transforming its energy into action. Anxiety, uncertainty, and trepidation, when left unchecked, are chains. But when consciously directed, these same forces become catalyst for preparation, discipline, and decisive initiative. Fear reveals what is at stake, and by acknowledging the stakes, one finds focus, motivation, and clarity. Every successful strategy, every calculated risk, emerges not from comfort or certainty, but from the intelligent use of fear to heighten awareness, anticipate threats, and sharpen execution. Those who act in the presence of fear gain a momentum that those untouched by risk cannot match, for their very nerves have been converted into instruments of vigilance and potency. Furthermore, fear tests resilience and shapes character. The individual who confronts it repeatedly becomes less susceptible to paralysis, more adept at navigating uncertainty, and more confident in decision-making under pressure. Each encounter with fear becomes a rehearsal for mastery, a means to cultivate composure and clarity where others see chaos. This resilience is a form of power in itself, as it creates an aura of inevitability around the actions of the fearless, compelling compliance, respect, or awe from allies and adversaries alike. The alchemy of fear is also profoundly psychological. When one harnesses fear effectively, it heightens awareness, sharpens perception, and strengthens resolve. It demands engagement with reality at its most raw, revealing both threats and opportunities in their starkest form. Those who allow fear to dominate are victims of circumstance, their energy dissipated by doubt. Those who use it as fuel transform anxiety into a driving force, converting tension into strategy, apprehension into calculation, and dread into momentum. By embracing fear rather than fleeing it, one harnesses the very energy that immobilizes others, turning a universal weakness into a distinctive, personal advantage. Self-belief is not a gentle affirmation whispered in moments of doubt. It is a relentless conviction, an unyielding foundation upon which all power, influence, and achievement are built. To doubt oneself is to surrender the battlefield of possibility before it has even been engaged. Those who hesitate, question, or waver expose the faintest fissures in their armor, inviting rivals, circumstances, and fate itself to exploit weakness. Ruthless self-belief is the antidote to uncertainty. It transforms doubt into momentum, hesitation into decisiveness, and fear into opportunity. Without it, even the most brilliant strategy collapses under the weight of indecision. For the mind is the first realm in which victory is either won or lost. The cultivation of ruthless self-belief begins with complete ownership of one's abilities and potential. It demands acknowledgement of one's strengths without arrogance, recognition of weaknesses without hesitation, and an unwavering commitment to leverage both strategically. Self-belief is not born from the absence of difficulty. It is forged in the crucible of challenge, tempered by experience, and hardened by repeated confrontation with uncertainty. Those who cultivate it treat each obstacle as a test of their conviction, each setback as a rehearsal for greater triumphs, and each criticism as a prompt to refine, rather than a signal to falter. Ruthless self-belief also requires the rejection of external validation as the determinant of worth or capability. The approval of peers, the judgment of critics, and the opinions of rivals are all transient and mutable. They are not anchors for action. The individual who acts solely in response to external perception relinquishes control, allowing circumstance to dictate their confidence and direction. True self-belief arises from an internal authority, a recognition that the mind and will of the individual are the ultimate arbiters of possibility. When one is unshakable in their conviction, the actions taken radiate certainty, command respect, and influence outcomes with far greater efficacy than any appeal to external reassurance. Moreover, ruthless self-belief demands an intimate understanding of fear, risk, and consequence, paired with the unshakable determination to act despite them. Confidence without comprehension is folly. The truly powerful know the terrain, assess danger, and anticipate resistance, yet move forward, because their belief in their own capacity outweighs hesitation. This combination of knowledge and conviction creates an aura of inevitability. Those who witness it are compelled to follow, yield, or defer, while adversaries are disarmed before engagement. Self-belief becomes both shield and spear, protecting against doubt and propelling decisive, authoritative action. The individual who embraces ruthless self-belief also understands the contagious nature of conviction. Allies, subordinates, and observers are influenced not merely by deeds but by the aura of certainty projected by the confident mind. A leader who demonstrates unshakable self-belief inspires loyalty, obedience, and initiative, while one who wavers breeds uncertainty, hesitation, and fragmentation. In this way, self-belief is both personal armor and strategic instrument, a force multiplier that extends far beyond the individual to shape the behavior and perception of others. Finally, ruthless self-belief demands perseverance, adaptability, and the refusal to surrender to circumstance. It is not blind arrogance or delusional optimism. It is a disciplined, unyielding confidence that recognizes challenge, evaluates risk, and acts with precision. Each step taken with conviction reinforces the foundation of belief, while each success, small or great, compounds its intensity. Over time, this self-belief becomes impervious to criticism, impervious to adversity, and impervious to fear, establishing the individual as a force capable of shaping reality, commanding respect, and achieving victory through the sheer weight of their conviction. In the end, all mastery, all victory, all influence begins and ends within the mind. Control it, and the world bends to your will. Hesitate, and it crushes you under the weight of uncertainty. Worry is a thief of action, a subtle enemy that erodes strength and sows hesitation. The moment it is discarded, the moment fear is confronted, analyzed, and converted into fuel, the path to power becomes clear. Confidence, perception, decisiveness, and ruthless self-belief converge to form an unbreakable force. The mind, disciplined and unwavering, becomes both shield and weapon, commanding reality and shaping outcomes with precision. Those who act while others linger in doubt, who harness fear while others are paralyzed, and who project unwavering certainty while others tremble, sees the world not by chance, but by design. Victory is not granted to the cautious, the hesitant, or the fearful. It belongs to those who rise above worry, embrace their own power, and move with relentless purpose.